And joining us now from our San Francisco affiliate, KRON, is Dr. Carol Kinsey Goman, a management consultant who's the author of The Loyalty Factor, Building Trust in Today's Workplace. Dr. Goman, isn't it foolish for any worker these days to expect the old-fashioned loyalty from an employer?
Sure, the old-fashioned loyalty is definitely dead. The problem is that few organizations have taken the time to develop parameters around what the new loyalty is.
You're also in favor of worker retraining programs, but companies will quickly answer, hey, one of the reasons we got in trouble in the first place is that we couldn't afford all the things we were doing. We can't add another layer of cost to this.
Well, training is one of those things I think you're going to see back in the bottom line in very substantial ways. If part of the New Deal is that you can't give me job security, then I need to have employability security. So train me with personal and professional growth opportunities and career counseling that will make me a better employee here and also set me up for future jobs in this or the next organization.
Her client list includes Pepsi, Westinghouse, DuPont, and AT&T. Her service, energizing workers.
The name of your book is This Isn't the Company I Joined.
Yes.
Who did you write this book for?
For everybody, every audience I've ever addressed. That's one of the questions I ask. I will give them a series of questions about how much change is going on in their life, and I'll respond with raised hands. And then I get to this last question. I say, how many of you realize that the company you're with is not the company you joined? And after a beat, while people take stock, every hand in every audience around the industrialized world goes up. Therefore, I thought these people need to be addressed.
You talk about making employees change adept.
Yes.
Is that a function of skill or age, or which employee would be more change adept?
Well, I did a study of about 1,000 people internationally and found that it wasn't age, it wasn't gender. I thought it would be women that would be change adept, but it wasn't. It was simply those people who had 5 characteristics: confidence, challenge, which is optimism; coping, which is an ability to deal emotionally and well with the kind of stress that's in change; counterbalance, which is having a life external to work; and creativity, that ability to solve problems or even anticipate problems in a creative way. Those qualities need to be developed in an organization so that the entire organization is change adept.
But what I mean is you are never going to be splendid, and you are never going to thrive on change by being mediocre and well-rounded. You're going to thrive on change by finding something that you do super well and learning how to do it even better. But it is a matter of learning and unlearning. When I was 4 years old, I took tap dancing lessons. And I took them for about 12 years, so until I was about 16. What would I be? 4 and 12, 6, okay. A few years ago, I thought, I need some more aerobic activity. I mean, I walk my dog, that's good, but I really need more aerobic activities. I looked in the newspaper, Berkeley, California, tap classes. Tap! This is good. I had 12 years of tap. I'll sign up for tap. I'll probably go in the advanced class. This is fine. Go there. I sign up. They don't put me in the advanced class. They don't put me in the intermediate class, and I don't even get into the beginning class. What I get in, I don't know what they called it. I called it the remedial class. Because in those ensuing decades, between the time I was 12 and now, I found out that tap was redefined by people like Xavier Glover on Broadway. I don't know if any of you are tap experts, but if you are, people have learned to tap differently. And those cute little high-heel tap shoes that Ann Miller wore in movies, nobody's wearing those anymore. Even if you're a woman, you wear Oxford shoes that lace up, because the way you hold your leg, your ankle, to make a simple sound like a shuffle, a back and forward sound, totally different. Now, I would have been better off had I not been educated in tap earlier. If I'd come in new, it's why some people that are new on the job seem to do well with change. They don't have anything invested in the way we did it in the past. But the way I learned to dance in the past had to be totally unlearned before I could get in the beginning class. Finally, I am now in the intermediate class. Thank you very much. A few years ago, I was invited to give a speech at a program in which top management was rolling out their new corporate vision. Let me tell you, this was quite an event. Well, I opened the program. The chief executive officer followed me. Other top executives spoke. And then we all sat down and congratulated each other on a job well done. Well, luckily there was a break, because during the break, a friend of mine had been sitting in the audience, and he came up to me and he said, Carol, do you realize that we've sat in this audience for over 3 hours, and not one of you up there have said, How are we going to do that? Well, that's my focus for today. How are we going to do that? How are we going to communicate corporate vision to make it credible and alive, where employees at all levels walk the talk?
The number one reason in my research and most other people's research that people don't share what they know is they believe that knowledge is power. So they're quite a bit like this little magpie. The magpie in the story is the miser. He's the archivist of the organization. He's the company savant. And his ego and his sense of worth is built by the number of times other people have to go to him for the information that he has. So he hoards that as if it were gold. Now, I've exaggerated all of these qualities with each character and pulled them out. Or there's probably a lot of people that are a mix of different things. But the miser and this belief that knowledge is power is so pervasive in our psyches, and I think it's because it started in school. If you and I were in a classroom and you had the answer that was going to be on a test, and you gave it to me, you shared it with me, you gave me that knowledge, you have not only increased my chances for success, but you have pulled down yours, particularly if we are graded on the curve. So we have learned from a very early age that hanging on to knowledge can be very powerful. And then we have joined organizations all over the world that have rewarded that kind of behavior. Let me just close in by saying that I did say, that knowledge sharing happens automatically when the right people get together at the right time. I just want to tell you what a pleasure it has been addressing a room full of all the right people. Thanks.
Thank you.